Lawrence Monsanto Ferlinghetti was an American poet, painter, social activist, and the co-founder of City Lights booksellers and publishers. He was the author of poetry, translations, fiction, theater, art criticism, and film narration. Ferlinghetti was best known for his first collection of poems, A Coney Island of the Mind, which has been translated into 9 languages, with sales of more than 1 million copies. When Ferlinghetti turned 100 in March 2019, the city of San Francisco proclaimed his birthday, March 24, Lawrence Ferlinghetti Day. Ferlinghetti was born on March 24, 1919, in Yonkers, New York. Shortly before Lawrence's birth, his father, Carlo, a native of Brescia, died of a heart attack in 1919. His mother, Clemence Albertine, of Sephardic Jewish descent, was committed to a mental hospital shortly afterward. He was raised by an aunt, and later by foster parents. He attended the Mount Hermon School for Boys, graduating in 1937. He attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he earned a BA in journalism in 1941. He began his career in journalism by writing sports for the Daily Tar Heel, and he published his first short stories in Carolina Magazine, for which Thomas Wolfe had written. Following service in the U.S. Navy throughout World War II, in which he served as a skipper of a submarine chaser in the Normandy invasion, Ferlinghetti earned a master's degree in English literature from Columbia University in 1947 with a thesis on John Ruskin and the British painter J. M. W. Turner. From Columbia, he went to the University of Paris to continue his studies and earned a doctoral degree in comparative literature with a dissertation on the city as a symbol in modern poetry. Ferlinghetti met his future wife, Selden Kirby Smith, granddaughter of Edmund Kirby Smith, in 1946 aboard a ship en route to France. They both were heading to Paris to study at the Sorbonne. Kirby Smith went by the name Kirby. He moved to San Francisco in 1951 and founded City Lights in North Beach in 1953. In partnership with Peter D. Martin, a student at San Francisco State University, they both put up $500. In 1955 he bought Martin's share and became the primary owner of the City Lights bookstore and established a publishing house with the same name. The first series published was the Pocket Poets series. Ferlinghetti was arrested for publishing Allen Ginsberg's Howl, which resulted in a First Amendment trial in 1957, when Ferlinghetti was charged with publishing an obscene work, and acquitted. If you would be a poet, create works capable of answering the challenge of apocalyptic times, even if this meaning sounds apocalyptic. You are Whitman. You are Poe. You are Mark Twain. You are Emily Dickinson and Edna St. Vincent Millay. You are Neruda and Mayakovsky and Pasolini. You are an American or a non-American. You can conquer the conquerors with words. Ferlinghetti published many of the beat poets and is considered by some as a beat poet as well. Yet Ferlinghetti did not consider himself to be a beat poet. As he said in the 2013 documentary Ferlinghetti, Rebirth of Wonder, "Don't call me a beat. I was never a beat poet." Ferlinghetti penned much of his early poetry in the vein of T.S. Eliot. Ferlinghetti told poet and critic Jack Foley, "Everything I wrote sounded just like him. Yet, even in his poems inspired by Eliot, such as Ferlinghetti's, constantly risking absurdity. Ferlinghetti is ever the populist as he compares the poet first to a trapeze artist in a circus and then to a little Charlie Chaplin man. Critics have noted that Ferlinghetti's poetry often takes on a highly visual dimension as befits this poet who was also a painter. As the poet and critic Jack Foley states, Ferlinghetti's poems tell little stories, make pictures. Ferlinghetti as a poet paints with his words pictures full of color capturing the average American experience as seen in his poem, In Golden Gate Park That Day. In Golden Gate Park that day, a man and his wife were coming along. He was wearing green suspenders, while his wife was carrying a bunch of grapes. In the first poem in a Coney Island of the Mind, entitled, In Goya's Greatest Scenes, we seem to see, Ferlinghetti describes with words the suffering humanity that Goya portrayed by brush in his paintings. Ferlinghetti concludes his poem with the recognition that suffering humanity today might be painted as average Americans drowning in the materialism on a freeway 50 lanes wide, a concrete continent spaced with bland billboards illustrating imbecile illusions of happiness. Ferlinghetti took a distinctly populist approach to poetry, emphasizing throughout his work that art should be accessible to all people, not just a handful of highly educated intellectuals. Larry Smith, an American author and editor, stated that Ferlinghetti is a poet of the people engaged conscientiously in the creation of new poetic and cultural forms. This